All stories are dramatized recreations. Named locations are fictionalized. Any resemblance to real persons is coincidental.
Hi, I'm Hazel, a 29-year-old brow specialist from TD. Sharing this is hard, but I need to process how my husband Mark's affair with a female coworker from another department shattered our 8-year marriage. It began when I found texts on his iPad late-night messages about missing her laugh, signed with heart emojis. Funny how trust evaporates in seconds. That iPad was supposed to be for our toddler's cartoons, not this. 8 years of building a home together, mortgage payments, IF struggles, his promotion dinners, all now feel like scenes from someone else's life. And the worst part? She works at his tech firm's San Diego branch. He'd told me those weekend conferences were networking essentials. I believed him. Always. The drive home blurred into streaks of streetlights and rain. I parked, but didn't move, just stared at our porch light haloed in mist. 8 years. The number pulsed like a bruise. Inside, Mark was humming in the kitchen, the way he did when making Ella's bedtime bottle. Normal. Ordinary. I gripped the iPad tighter, its edges biting into my palm. How many nights had I sat right there, trusting his overtime, while he typed these words to her? Miss your laugh today. Wish you were here. Each, a tiny detonation. I walked in, rainwater pooling at my feet. He turned, smile fading when he saw my face. Hazel, you're shaking. His hand reached for mine, the same hand that tapped those emojis. I flinched back. No rage, just cold, spreading numbness, like Novocaine in the soul. When I thrust the iPad at him, his expression didn't crumble. It shifted. That micro flinch beneath his stubble confirmation. It's not what you think, he began, voice too calm. Liar. The word screamed inside my skull, but my mouth stayed shut. Ella's cry echoed from the nursery. He moved toward her, but I blocked the hallway. Don't. One syllable, brittle as dried glue. He tried to explain. Work stress, loneliness, she understands the projects. Each excuse carved deeper. I pictured her, some San Diego stranger dissecting his spreadsheets, laughing at his jokes I'd recycled for years. My knees buckled, I braced against the fridge. Family photos glared back, us at Disneyland, our IF victory dinner, him holding newborn Ella. All ghosts now, how long? I whispered. He looked away. That silence, thicker than any confession. The betrayal wasn't just in the texts. It was in the coffee dates he called client meetings, the hotel points on statements he'd brushed off. A whole parallel life built while I tinted brows and packed lunches. Ella's wails sharpened. Mark edged past me, murmuring, "We'll talk later." As he climbed the stairs, I slid down the cabinet, tile cold through my leggings. Scrolled the messages again. Can't wait for Friday, Job A. This Friday? His team dinner? I pressed a hand to my sternum, half expecting shattered glass beneath skin. But it was just hollow. Empty as our vows now. Outside, rain lashed the kitchen window. I thought of my clients, women trusting me to shape their arches, frame their eyes. All that careful artistry. Yet I never saw the cracks in my own marriage. Sleep never came. By dawn, I'd memorized the ceiling cracks above our bed, where he'd slept beside me for 2 nights. Now, an ocean of empty sheets stretched between us. Ella's morning babbling from the monitor felt like ropes pulling me upright. Move, function. In the bathroom mirror, my reflection startled me, pale skin, smudged mascara halos. I splashed water, but the chill couldn't rinse away the static in my veins. Mark's toothbrush still stood in the holder. I dropped it in the trash. A tiny act, but the snap of plastic hitting bin liner angered me. Breakfast was a pantomime. Ella smashed blueberries into her high-chair tray while Mark pretended to read news headlines, shoulders tense. "We should talk," he said finally. I kept wiping Ella's sticky hands. 1, 2, 3 wipes. "The San Diego team needs me this weekend," he continued. Her, the unspoken name hung between us like rotten fruit. My knuckles whitened around the wipe. "Take Ella to your mom's," I said flatly. "I need the house empty Saturday." His spoon clattered into his cereal bowl. "Why?" "Because," I met his eyes, "I'm calculating how much your mortgage payment is versus renting a 1-bedroom. The color drained from his face. Good. Let him taste the instability he'd created. Ella reached for me, chirping, "Mama." A lifeline. That's when it hit. This wasn't just my heart breaking. It was Ella's world cracking. Her security, her future. That fear cut sharper than betrayal. He left for work, silence throbbing in his wake. I called my salon manager, voice miraculously steady, personal emergency. Need the day. Then I spread bank statements across the kitchen table, our joint account, his business travel reimbursements, the savings bled dry by fertility treatments. Numbers blurred. 3, monthly mortgage. My brows income, 2, after taxes. Breathe. Ella napped as I Googled emergency custody consultation, fingers trembling. Not revenge preservation. At noon, I bundled Ella into the stroller and walked. Rain had stopped, leaving Glendale's streets slick and smelling of wet jasmine. We passed the park where Mark taught Ella to walk. Look at her go, hazy. His pride, so bright it hurt to remember. Now, I gripped the stroller handle like a weapon. At the coffee shop, I ordered chamomile, no more caffeine shakes, and opened my laptop. Real estate listings glowed on screen. Studio apartments near dodgy strip malls, pet-friendly units with stained carpets. Ella babbled at sparrows on the patio. Her. Always her. A notification pinged Mark. "Can we talk tonight?" "I'll come home early." I deleted it. Home wasn't his anymore. I clicked instead on a job posting. High-end brow studio seeking lead artist. Salary, $55K plus bonuses. Qualifications, 5+ years, portfolio, client retention. I could do this. Not a dream, a necessity. Ella smeared scone crumbs on her overalls, grinning. That grin gooey trusting was my fault line and my foundation. I wouldn't let her stability crumble. Not even if mine already had. The salon's chemical tang alcohol, dye, warm wax used to smell like routine. That Thursday it smelled like oxygen. Breathe in. Shape, release, my first client since the texts arched her brows expectantly. "Just a cleanup, Hazel. Mark still traveling?" Sandra's voice dripped faux concern. Neighborhood gossip traveled faster than 5G. I adjusted my headlamp, light catching the silver band on her ring finger. Focus. Tweezer tips hovered above her skin. One precise pull, then another. Muscle memory steadied my hand even as my pulse hammered. "Actually," I said, stretching skin taut near her arch, "we're separating." The tweezers didn't waver. Sandra's gasp vibrated under my fingers. No, sympathy, curiosity. I met her eyes in the mirror. "Please hold still." Empowerment wasn't a lightning strike. It was microblading strokes. Tiny, deliberate acts of control. That night, I drafted my portfolio, before-after photos of feathered hairlines, corrective work on botched tattoos. Each image screamed I built this. Not Mark. Me. At 1 a.m., I emailed it to Lux Brow's studio, the high-end gig. Attached a cover letter, I transform uncertainty into definition. Ironic, really, Mark noticed. Oh, he noticed. 3 days later he forgot. Ella's daycare pickup. My client's brows were mid-tint when my phone buzzed. Preschool caller id. Panic spiked. "Mrs. Reed?" "Ella's the last one here." Apologizing to my client, I dashed out, tint oxidizing on my gloves. Found Ella alone in the empty classroom, stacking blocks with tear-swollen eyes. Mark's text arrived as I buckled her in. Crazy day. Totally slipped my mind. That smiley face, a grenade. Sabotage. Passive, plausible, poisonous. I drove to Luxbrau's for my interview, Ella napping in her car seat. My reflection in the studio's chrome doors, sharp black blazer, nude pumps, toddler drool on my shoulder. Perfect. Inside, the manager Leela scanned my portfolio. Impressive corrective work, she noted, tapping a photo of scar camouflage. How do you handle unpredictable variables? Outside, Ella woke wailing. Leela's gaze flickered to the window. I didn't flinch. "Variables are my specialty," I said, pulling Ella's sippy cup from my tote. "I adapt." Leela smiled. "When can you start?" Victory tasted like lukewarm coffee in Luxbrau's break room. Until Mark called. "Hazel, we need to discuss Ella's schedule. My lawyer suggests." "I have full custody until mediation," I cut in, voice smooth as a razor's edge. "Email your requests." Silence. Then the click of his disconnect. His lawyer? Fine. Let him waste retainer fees. I scrolled to my new calendar app. Luxbrow's onboarding, Mon. Ella pediatrician, 2. Mediation prep, wed, color-coded. Solid. Unshakable. That weekend, Sandra returned. Darling, I heard Mark's seeing someone already, that coworker. She leaned in, whispering, he told Rick's barbershop you're unstable. Said the new job won't last. I swabbed her brow bone with alcohol. Cold, clean, tilt your head up please. The tweezers plucked one stray hair. Then another, snip, snip, like cutting ties. Funny, I murmured, blending pigment into her arch. My client list just doubled. Rick's wife booked a full set yesterday. Sandra's eyes widened. I smoothed the skin beneath her brow. Hold still, almost defined. Rain drummed against Luxbrow's windows 6 months later. Steady, like the rhythm I'd rebuilt. Ella squirmed in the waiting area, stacking crayons while I finished Mrs. Chen's microblading. Hold here, I murmured, dabbing pigment. The door chimed. A man shook water from his coat, dark hair glistening. James Walker, he told Leela. Walk in consult? My sister swore you're miracle workers. His laugh was warm, low, unfamiliar in my bones. I kept working, but my pulse flickered. Danger. He sat across from me during his consultation, elbows on knees. Corporate trainer, he explained, tapping his portfolio. Mostly remote, but I travel too. Ella barreled into his legs, scattering crayons. Whoops. He caught her effortlessly, crouching to her level. Hey, artist, in training. These yours? His smile crinkled the corners of his eyes. Kind eyes, I noted. Too kind. Ella handed him a broken blue crayon like a peace treaty. Mama fixes brows, she announced. James glanced at me. Lucky clients. Heat crept up my neck. Stupid. We bumped into him again Saturday at the farmer's market, Ella dragging me toward pumpkin stalls. James held a paper bag of apples, sunlight catching the gray at his temples. Small world, he grinned. Ella demanded a piggyback ride. He obliged without hesitation, her giggles drawing stares. We walked past artisan cheese stands, his questions gentle. Favorite season? Fall crisp air, new beginnings. Best brow disaster story? A bride who cried mid-wax, fixed it with tea bags. Normal things, safe things, until he paused at a honey vendor. Used to buy this for my buddy Mark Reed. He's in tech too. Know him? Ice flooded my veins. Mark. His name, a landmine in this golden afternoon. James read my frozen expression instantly. Oh, shit, you're Hazel. He set Ella down slowly. He mentioned complications. Complications, a sterile word for the crater he left. I gripped Ella's hand. We're divorced. James ran a hand over his jaw. Mark and I shared a hotel at a conference last year. He called you controlling. A bitter laugh escaped me. Classic Mark. James stepped closer, voice dropping. But when his phone buzzed at 2 a.m., he left the room whispering, babies. Didn't sound like co-parenting. Truth. Raw, ugly, and his to share. Ella tugged my sleeve toward painted pony rides. James didn't follow. I'll be here, he said quietly, if you ever want apple pie. I bake a mean one. Weeks passed. He texted once a sunset photo over Glendale Reservoir. Quiet here. Thought you'd like the colors. I didn't reply, but at Ella's Halloween parade he appeared beside the rope line holding a thermos. Cider, non-alcoholic. Our fingers brushed during the handoff. A jolt. Mark's engaged, I blurted. To her, the San Diego coworker. James sipped his cider, gaze fixed on toddlers in ghost costumes. He told me, sent a smug group text. He turned to me. But you? You're rebuilding a life around the wreckage. That's courage, Hazel. Trust didn't bloom. It unfurled leaf by leaf. At the park, watching him push Ella on swings, I asked, why risk telling me about Mark's call? He stopped the swing, crouching to retie Ella's shoe. Because starting with lies is like building on sand. Simple, solid. Ella threw her arms around his neck. He froze, eyes locking with mine. Permission? I nodded. His hug was careful, all strength held in reserve. Later, walking home, he confessed, I Googled you after the market. Found your Yelp reviews. One said, Hazel doesn't just shape brows, she rebuilds confidence. He halted, facing me. So, coffee sometime? Just coffee. Rain began again, fine mist kissing our cheeks. Ella slept in her stroller between us. Coffee, not flowers, not promises. A beginning with room to breathe. Okay, I whispered. One word, terrifying as a freefall. But his smile? That felt like solid ground. Mediation paperwork still smelled of photocopier toner when Mark's grenade started landing. First, an urgent email, concerned about Ella's adjustment. Requesting full custody evaluation. I read it standing in Luxbrow's supply closet, breathing in the sharp scent of sterilized tools. Breathe. Count. Outside, my 2 p.m. client waited, a bride getting her dream brows. I tucked the phone away and smoothed my apron. Control the controllable. His campaign escalated quietly. Whispers at Ella's preschool, is her mom really stable? Heard she's rushing into things. The director called me in, her office walls plastered with finger-painted rainbows. We've had comments, she said gently, avoiding my eyes. I placed Ella's artwork on her desk. A family portrait with 3 stick figures, me, Ella, James. Her teacher says she's thriving, I stated, voice calm as still water. Attendance records? Perfect. Nap logs? Consistent. I slid them forward. Mark's last-minute cancellations? 8 this quarter. The director flushed, nodding. We value truth here. Then came the financial ambush. Mark's lawyer demanded renegotiation of our settlement. New evidence of undisclosed income. James found me that night at my apartment, staring blankly at a spreadsheet. He's claiming Luxbrow's tips are taxable assets I hid. My laugh cracked. Cash tips go into Ella's college fund. Every penny. James knelt before me, palms open. Then show them. So I did. At the mediator's office, I presented not just bank records, but Ella's 529 plan, her name bold on every deposit. Mark shifted in his chair, eyes darting to his fiancé's stony face. Irrelevant, his lawyer snapped. The mediator, a woman with silver hair and tired eyes, leaned forward. Ms. Reed, why keep meticulous records of small cash gifts? I met Mark's gaze. Because promises matter, even broken ones. The room stilled. Outside, rain blurred the city skyline. The collapse came not with a bang, but a whimper. 3 days later, preschool parents witnessed Mark's fiancée snap at Ella for spilling juice. Can't you be careful? She hissed, wiping Ella's dress with rough strokes. Mrs. Chen saw it, my Tuesday microblading client. That evening, she texted me a video, Ella flinching, Mark oblivious on his phone. Thought you should know, she wrote. I didn't forward it to Mark. Didn't need to. Truth, once loose, finds its own path. My victory arrived on a Thursday dual envelopes. 1. Legal notice of Mark withdrawing custody challenges. 2. Luxbrow's promotion, letter lead artist and trainer. Leela handed it to me with a hug. Clients request you by name. You've earned this. Sunlight streamed through salon windows, glinting on the chrome implements I'd mastered. Tools of transformation, for others, then myself. That Sunday, James helped us move into a sunlit bungalow, mine leased without marital strings. We unpacked Ella's toys as she danced through empty rooms, singing. Home, Mama? She asked, pressing a sticker to the fridge. Home, not a battle trench, not a monument to loss. Just walls waiting for our stories. James paused beside me, holding a box labeled Hazel's Awards. Where to, boss? His smile was a quiet harbor. I led him to the patio. Rain had washed the sky into watercolor blues. Below us, Glendale sprawled, messy, alive, forgiving. Here, I said, placing the box on a wrought iron table. Ella chased Bubbles James blue, her giggles weaving through jasmine vines. He touched my wrist. A question. Mark emailed, apologized for everything. The words hung between us, weightless as dandelion fluff. I watched a bubble drift toward power lines, shimmering before it vanished. I don't need his regret, I said softly. Just his respect when he parents Ella. James nodded, understanding deeper than words. This piece wasn't passive. It was chosen daily. Like the careful arch of a brow, it required intention, patience, and the courage to leave some things unfinished. Ella collapsed into my lap, smelling of grass and possibility. Mama happy? She murmured, patting my cheek. I kissed her palm. Yes, not because the pain was gone, but because the cracks had become places where light could enter. James's hand covered mine on Ella's back. No grand promises, just presence. The future stretched before us, uncertain, unguarded, and undeniably ours. The bungalow's silence was a new language. Not the tense quiet of Mark's late work nights, but something spacious, like holding your breath underwater and finding you could breathe. Ella's toys colonized the living room floor, a bright chaos that felt like freedom. James left at dusk with a promise of returning my drill. He'd mounted Ella's star-shaped nightlight. Anytime, I'd said, meaning it, yet relieved when the door clicked shut. Alone. Not lonely, just mine. Reality hit at 3 a.m. Ella's fever spiked. A sudden, terrifying furnace against my palm. I fumbled for the thermometer, its green glow eerie in the dark. 10:03 degrees. Panic, cold and familiar, slithered up my throat. Urgent care? My phone buzzed. Mark. Need to switch weekends. Sarah's bridal shower is sat. Sarah. Her. The name was a shard of glass. I stared at Ella's flushed face, her whimpers soft as torn silk. No, not now. I typed one-handed, Ella's sick. High fever, can't switch. His reply was instant, convenient. The word burned, convenient. Like the time he'd called our IF journey, dramatic. I pressed a cool cloth to Ella's forehead, humming a lullaby she'd outgrown months ago. Breathe, Hazel, you've handled worse. But the bathroom cabinet mocked me. Children's Tylenol expired last month. Idiot. Moving chaos. I'd forgotten the basics. Rain lashed the windows as I bundled Ella into her car seat, her body limp. The nearest 24-hour pharmacy was 12 minutes away. 12 minutes of white-knuckled driving, her whines sharpening into cries. The fluorescent aisles felt surreal. I grabbed medicine, electrolyte popsicles, a new thermometer, my hands shaking as I juggled Ella on my hip. At checkout, my card declined. Insufficient funds. The cashier's bored stare scraped raw. Mark's lawyer had frozen our joint account that morning, a precautionary measure he'd forgotten to mention. Heat flooded my cheeks. Try this one? My backup card. The tip money card. Please. The machine beeped approval. Relief tasted like bile. Back home, Ella vomited cherry red syrup onto her sheets. I stripped the bed, tears mixing with disinfectant spray. Weakness is a luxury you can't afford. The thought, sharp and clear, cut through the panic. I settled Ella on the couch, cartoons flickering silently, and attacked the stain. Scrubbing, always scrubbing away messes I didn't make. Dawn bled gray through the windows when James's truck rumbled outside. He appeared at the door, toolbox in hand, taking in the scene, Ella asleep amid piled blankets, me cross-legged on the floor beside a bucket. Saw your lights, he murmured, setting down the drill. Everything okay? The kindness undid me. I gestured to the medicine box. Card declined. He froze everything. James didn't flinch. He filled a glass with water, handed it to me. Drink. Then he picked up the new thermometer. Let me check her. You rest. Rest. An alien concept. But watching him, his large hands gentle on Ella's wrist, his voice a low murmur checking her pulse, I felt the knot in my chest loosen. He didn't offer money. Didn't curse Mark. Just competence. Temps down to 100.7, he confirmed. Popsicle did its job. He sat beside me on the floor, shoulder warm against mine. You should have called. I handled it, I said, the defiance automatic. Like you did, he agreed. But handling it alone isn't the same as strength. Outside, rain softened to mist. Ella sighed in her sleep. James stayed until her fever broke, fixing the leaky kitchen faucet while I dozed on the couch. When he left, a folded 100 bill sat beneath the medicine box. Pay me back in brow waxes, his note read. No interest. I tucked the money into Ella's college fund jar. Not a rescue. A bridge. And for the first time, crossing it didn't feel like surrender. Luxbrow's chrome gleamed under fluorescent lights, but my reflection felt foreign sharp-lined blazer, nude pumps, the lead artist badge clipped like armor. Breathe in, shape, release. Mrs. Kensington's brow arch demanded precision, but Mark's latest email burned behind my eyelids. Emergency mediation request. James's unsupervised access to Ella. Unsupervised? He pushed her on swings once while I signed daycare forms. My scalpel trembled. Everything all right, Hazel? Mrs. Kensington murmured, sensing the shift. I forced a smile, blending pigment. Perfect. Just ensuring symmetry. Liar. The word echoed Mark's favorite accusation. Outside, rain sheeted down, blurring the salon's neon sign into watery streaks. Ella was safe. At preschool, today was Mark's custody window. Unless he'd canceled again. At pickup, the director met me at the gate, umbrella tilted against downpour. Mr. Reed collected Ella early, she said, avoiding my eyes. Said it was pre-approved? My stomach dropped. No, our agreement stipulated 3 p.m. sharp. I pulled my phone, 3 missed calls from Mark's lawyer. A new email, urgent welfare concern. Temporary custody granted ex parte. Attached, a grainy photo, James lifting Ella into his truck last week, her lunchbox visible. Caption, minor with unvetted mail. Rain soaked through my blazer as I sped toward Mark's condo. Ella's stuffed bunny lay abandoned on the passenger seat. Her car buddy. Breathe. Do not crash. His building loomed, glass towers reflecting storm clouds. The doorman blocked me. Ms. Reed? Mr. Reed requested no visitors. I stared at the security monitors. Ella's tiny figure pacing behind Mark's balcony glass. Trapped. Call him, I demanded, voice glacial. Or, I call police for custodial interference. The doorman hesitated, dialed. Mark's voice crackled. Tell her I'm protecting Ella from unstable influences. Rage flashed white, but I clutched the bunny. Ella, I shouted toward cameras. Mama's here, show me your bunny. Silence. Then, a small hand pressed against the monitor. Ella's tear-streaked face filled the screen, her other hand holding the bunny's ear. Proof of life. Proof of his lie. The doorman paled. Sir, she's... Let her up. Mark's snarl cut through. His condo smelled of new leather and resentment. Ella flew into my arms, hiccuping. Daddy said James steals kids, she whispered. Mark leaned against his marble kitchen island, fiancée Sarah beside him. Merely precautionary, he shrugged. Given your choices. Sarah examined her nails. We're filing for adjustment to custody. That man is a stranger. I knelt, wiping Ella's tears. James brought you apple pie, remember? With the crumbly top? Ella nodded, burying her face in my neck. I stood, meeting Mark's gaze. Ex parte orders require imminent danger. Show me yours. His jaw tightened. Sarah stepped forward. His record? James Walker? Army veteran. Cleared background check for corporate training. I pulled my phone, scrolling to his LinkedIn. Whereas you, I tapped Sarah's tagged photo, last month's Dewey report. Her gasp was a victory. Drop this, I said softly, or I submit this to family services. With your emergency photo. Mark's composure cracked. Get out. I lifted Ella, her weight anchoring me. Mediation is Tuesday. Bring better lies. Rain had gentled to mist outside. Ella slept against my shoulder as James's truck pulled up. He took one look at us, me drenched, Ella clinging, and opened the passenger door. Where to? He asked quietly. Anywhere, I breathed. He drove to the reservoir, its surface silvered by twilight. We sat in silence, Ella's snores soft between us. I Googled you, I confessed. The Dewey, why didn't you tell me? James stared at the water. 4 years sober, didn't want pity. Mark used it to scare Ella. His knuckles whitened on the wheel. I'll stay away if... No. The word surprised us both. I trust who you are now. Not who you were. He exhaled slowly. Then trust me with this. He pulled an envelope from his glove box legal letterhead. Motion to intervene. James Walker v. Mark Reed. My lawyer filed it today. For defamation. He met my eyes. Not revenge, protection. For Ella, for you, twilight deepened into indigo. Ella stirred, murmuring, James? Pie? He smiled, brokenly. Next weekend. Double crumble. As we drove home, Ella's hand clasped mine, sticky with sleep. The rearview mirror showed Mark's lies receding in the dark. Ahead only open road. Mediation room air tasted like stale coffee and compressed rage. Mark's lawyer, a sharp-suited man with reptilian eyes, slid a document across the polished table. Supplemental financial disclosure. His finger tapped a highlighted line. $2 undisclosed cash tips. Lux Brows, Jana Prain. Sarah sat beside Mark, radiating venomous satisfaction. The mediator, Mrs. Vance, adjusted her glasses. Ms. Reed, this suggests intentional concealment of marital assets. Breathe. Shape. Release. I opened my folder, extracting Ella's bright blue college fund ledger, every page crammed with dates, amounts, and my looping script. 20. Sandra's birthday tip. 50. Mrs. Chen's Lunar New Year gift. Page 12, I said, voice steady as a scalpel. April 3rd, $20 cash tip deposited into Ella's 5029 plan. I pushed the bank confirmation toward Mrs. Vance. Same day Mr. Reed claims I concealed it. Mark's chair creaked. Convenient records. Integrity requires diligence, I countered. Mrs. Vance scanned the documents, her pen hovering. Sarah leaned forward. And the man? James Walker? His criminal record wasn't disclosed during custody evaluations. There it was, the real attack. James stiffened beside me, our first mediation together. His intervention motion hung in the air like unsheathed steel. My record, James stated, sliding his own paper to Mrs. Vance, is expunged. Completed veterans rehab 4 years ago. Judge approved it. He nodded to me. Hazel knew before introducing me to Ella. Liar. Mark's eyes screamed it. Mrs. Vance studied James's court order. Mr. Reed, you alleged Ms. Reed endangered the child by allowing Mr. Walker unsupervised access. Yet your evidence is, she paused, a photo of him assisting Ella into his vehicle? With her mother 10 feet away, James clarified, tapping a time-stamped map log from his phone proof I'd been visible at the daycare gate. Mr. Reed's emergency custody grab was harassment. Silence thickened. Mark's lawyer shuffled papers. We maintain concerns about Miss Reed's judgment. Her new residence is modest. James laughed. A low, dangerous sound. Her modest bungalow is paid with her salary. Unlike your client's penthouse leased weeks before abandoning his family. He dropped a property manager's invoice on the table. Mark Reed, security deposit paid, 02-way 14s. Valentine's Day, the day he'd brought me tulips. Sarah stood abruptly, chair screeching. This is character assassination. No, I said softly, meeting Mark's flinch. Like, this is consequence. Mrs. Vance removed her glasses. Mr. Reed, unless you provide substantive evidence of endangerment or fraud, I'll recommend dissolving the temporary order and sanctioning you for frivolous filings. She turned to me. Miss Reed, maintain all college fund records. Mr. Walker? She eyed his intervention motion. Tread carefully. Family court isn't a battlefield. James inclined his head. Protection isn't violence, ma'am. We emerged into glaring sunlight. Mark shoved past us, Sarah trailing. This isn't over, he hissed. James stepped between us, a silent wall. When Mark's BMW screeched away, I sagged against the stucco wall. Ella's ledger trembled in my hands. Hey, James murmured, turning me toward him. His thumb brushed a tear I hadn't felt. You're magnificent. I kept every receipt, I choked out. Like a paranoid accountant. No. He lifted my chin. Like a lioness. That night, Luxbrows hosted a bridal party, 6 women shimmering with champagne and pre-wedding joy. As I sculpted the bride's brows into perfect arcs, she sighed. You make it look effortless. I thought of ledgers, timestamps, the weight of Ella's trust. Effort is the foundation of elegance, I said, blending pigment. Later, unpacking groceries at the bungalow, Ella tugged James's sleeve. Daddy says you're bad. James froze, canned soup in hand. I knelt, heart pounding. What else did Daddy say, sweet pea? Ella traced a crack in the tile. Sarah cried, said Mama lies. James set the can down slowly. And, what do you think? Ella pressed her palm to my cheek, sticky with apple juice. Mama fixes things. James's phone buzzed his lawyer. Motion to intervene granted. Mark's temporary custody revoked. Sanctions pending. I read the text twice. Outside, dusk painted the jasmine vines gold. Ella climbed into James's lap, demanding a story. As his voice rumbled through Goodnight Moon, I placed the college fund ledger on the shelf, not hidden, displayed. Mark's war wasn't won. But in this quiet room, with Ella's breath evening into sleep and James's hand finding mine, the peace felt earned. Not the absence of battle. The certainty I could survive it. A pretty, weighs a pretty, Phil Myers. 3 weeks passed in a fragile peace. Mornings now smelled of James's coffee brewing in my kitchen while Ella chased toast crumbs across the linoleum. Our linoleum. The bungalow absorbed our rhythms, his low whistle tuning the radio, my brow pencils rattling in their case, Ella's sing-song demands for more syrup. Normalcy felt foreign, like borrowed clothes. At Luxbrow's, Leela cornered me mid-lamination. "Corporate wants you to train the new Westwood location," she said, eyes gleaming. 6 artists. Salary bump. The offer hung between us, sweet and heavy. Lead trainer, her salon. Mark's voice slithered through my memory, small-time talent. I dipped my wand in adhesive. When do I start? Training was chaos. New faces, trembling hands over trembling brows. I demonstrated feather strokes on practice skin, my voice calm. Pressure is a whisper, not a shout. One trainee, Maya, flinched as her blade nicked silicone. "I'll never get this," she whispered. I guided her hand, recalling my own shaky start. "Brows are journeys," I said. "Not destinations." James met me after work, Ella asleep in his truck. "Celebrate?" he asked, nodding toward the neon-lit taco stand. We ate carnitas under string lights, grease shining on Ella's chin. "Westwood, huh?" he grinned. "My sister's territory. She'll demand discounts." His foot brushed mine beneath the table. A question. I didn't pull away. Then, the review. It appeared at midnight. Hazel Reed ruined my brows. Star rating, age-attached photos showed angry red skin, overplucked arches. The username, GlowGoddess22, meant nothing. But the timestamp did. The hour mark lost his custody appeal. Leela called, tense. Yelp won't remove it. Clients are asking. I studied the photos. The ruined brows weren't mine. Too blunt. Wrong growth pattern, and AC. Still, doubt prickled. Had I slipped? The unraveling came swift. Next morning, Mrs. Kensington canceled her annual full set. "Just busy," she lied. Maya avoided my eyes during training. At pickup, preschool moms clustered, falling silent when I approached. Ella clung to my leg. "Mama," Sophie's mommy, says you hurt a lady's face. Rain pounded the drive home. James waited on my porch, umbrella, less. "Saw the review," he said, water dripping from his jaw. Mark's paralegal's sister. Sarah's college roommate. He handed me a printout, social media posts linking GlowGoddess22 to Sarah. "Petty revenge," he spat. I stared at the grainy selfies, Sarah and the victim clinking margaritas. Fury surged, hot and familiar. Destroy them. But Ella's worried face pressed against the window. Breathe. Shape. Release. Instead, I booked a dermatologist consult. Dr. Amani examined the review photos under magnifier lights. "Post-inflammatory erythema," she declared. "Caused by picking, not professional work." "See these scabs?" She pointed to enhanced close-ups. "No tweezer marks. Client-induced trauma." Her medical report was a shield. I didn't post it. Instead, I invited GlowGoddess22 real name, Chloe, to Luxbrow's. She arrived, defensive arms crossed. I offered tea. "I believe you're in pain," I began, sliding Dr. Amani's report across the table. Chloe's eyes widened at the diagnosis. "But these aren't my arches." I showed her my portfolio identical shots of her brows from 6 months prior. "You were overplucking then too. Remember?" Color flooded her cheeks. "Sarah said you'd deny. Sarah isn't licensed to diagnose skin," I said gently. "But I am. I opened a corrective plan. I can help, free of charge." Silence. Then, a tear slid down Chloe's cheek. "She told me you'd refuse refunds, that suing was the only way." James's truck idled outside as Chloe left, clutching aftercare instructions. "Well," he asked, "she'll update the review tomorrow." "You fixed it?" "No." I watched Chloe vanish into drizzle. I gave her the tools to fix herself. That night, Ella demanded James read Goodnight Moon twice. His voice, rough yet tender, filled the bungalow. Good night, stars. Good night, air. I curled beside them, my head resting against James's shoulder. His arm settled around me solid. Certain. Outside, the jasmine vines trembled in the rain, budding despite the storm. Rain drummed a relentless rhythm against Luxbrow's windows. The afternoon James walked in with his sleeve rolled up. Tattoo cover-up, he announced, tapping his bicep. Faded green ink blurred into jagged peaks. For my sister's wedding. She thinks it looks aggressive. His smile didn't reach his eyes. I traced the design. Mountains with a serpent coiled at the base. Army ink. Mark's warning hissed in my memory, violent past. Henna, or pigment? I asked, snapping on gloves. Permanent. Like the memories. He watched me mix brown gold pigment, my hands steady. Breathe. Shape. Release. The needle hummed. First pass, softening the serpent's fangs into vines. James flinched, just once. Afghanistan, he said quietly. Got this after. An incident. Thought it made me look unbreakable. The needle paused. And now? Now I know broken things grow back stronger. His gaze held mine in the mirror. Outside, thunder cracked. Ella was safe with Leela in the break room, drawing rainbows. I worked in silence, transforming poison into foliage. His skin warmed under my touch. This, I realized, was intimacy, not grand declarations, but witnessing scars without flinching. The serpent became a root system, the mountains layered with blooming dogwoods. Dogwoods? He asked, watching the petals take shape. They bloom after storms, I murmured. Like us. His hand covered mine, stilling the needle. Hazel, I need to tell you something. Rain blurred the world outside. That incident, my unit was ambushed. I froze. Got 2 men killed. The words hung, raw and heavy. The Dewey came after. Self-destruction mode. He swallowed. Mark found the court-martial records. Threatened to use them if I didn't back off from you. The needle hovered, truth or trap. I thought of Ella's hand in his patience with her nightmares. Why now? Because you trusted me with your cracks. So priested me with your cracks. He gestured to his half-covered tattoo. Time I trusted you with mine. The door burst open. Ella sprinted in, waving a dripping umbrella. Mama, the sky's crying. Leela followed, apologetic. James jerked his sleeve down, but not before Ella saw the ink. Pretty flowers. She touched his arm, leaving a tiny, wet handprint. James froze. Ella, sweetheart, like Mama's drawings. She beamed, oblivious. Make me a flower too? Relief flooded his face. I took Ella's hand, pressing it to my cheek cold from rain. Another day, love. I finished blending the last petal as thunder retreated. The serpent was gone, buried under resilient roots. Later, under the salon's UV lamp, James examined his arm. You buried the war, he said. No. I peeled off my gloves. You grew a garden over it. He drove us home through washed, clean streets. Ella chattered about puddles. At the bungalow, he hesitated at the door. I should go. Ella grabbed his wrist. Story first. He looked at me, a question in the set of his shoulders. Stay. The word trembled on my tongue. Instead, I touched the fresh ink on his arm. The dogwoods need aftercare. Come inside. We sat on the couch, Ella between us. James read The Giving Tree, his voice rough over the I'm sorry pages. When Ella slept, head heavy on his thigh, he didn't pull away. Rain whispered against the roof. My ex-wife, he said suddenly, staring at Ella's curls. She left after the court-martial. Said darkness followed me. And now? Now I'm sitting in a room full of light. His hand brushed a stray hair from Ella's forehead. Your light. I leaned into him, temple against his shoulder. His heartbeat thudded steady under my ear, a drumbeat of survival. Outside, the jasmine vines glistened, drinking the storm. The scent of antiseptic clung to the hospital corridor, sharp, sterile, a blade against the soft vulnerability of Ella's whimpers. Strep throat. Routine, the pediatrician assured, but my pulse hammered against my ribs as nurses swarmed. Mark arrived in a whirlwind of expensive cologne, eyes darting past me to Ella's curtained bay. Where's James? He demanded. Handling paperwork, I said, smoothing Ella's damp hair. Her small hand clutched mine, fever hot. Shouldn't he be here? Mark's voice dripped acid. Playing house with my kid? Ella flinched. His kid. Possessive. Poisonous. James appeared then, holding juice boxes and a stuffed otter. Ella's comfort ritual. Mark blocked his path. We need to discuss boundaries. Now. James set the otter on Ella's bed, his gaze never leaving Mark's. Outside. I stayed, humming Ella's favorite lullaby. You are my sunshine, as their muffled voices clashed beyond the curtain. Control the controllable. Ella's IV drip hissed. Her eyelids fluttered. Mama, scared. Just a sore throat, love, I whispered. Like when you ate too much ice cream. James's cookies, she mumbled, drifting. Not scary. The curtain snapped open. James stood rigid, knuckles white. Mark smirked. He understands. Understands what? But James just nodded, jaw clenched. Mark swept out, victory in his stride. In the parking garage, James slammed his truck door. He threatened to file parental alienation charges. Said my presence traumatizes her. Rain sheeted down the concrete walls. I won't be the reason Ella loses you, Hazel. I touched his wrist, the dogwood tattoo hidden under flannel. You're not. He has money. Lawyers. I'm just Ella's rock, I finished. And mine. 3 days later, Luxbrow's buzzed with wedding prep chaos. 6 bridesmaids sipped champagne while I perfected the bride's ombre powder brows. Leela burst in, phone trembling. Hazel, the Westwood deal. Corporate loved your training module. They're offering a flagship salon. She showed the email, lead director. 80K base plus equity. My breath caught. Flagship. Mark's sneer echoed. Brow girl dreams big, huh? James picked me up. Ella asleep in back. Celebratory tacos? He grinned. I showed him the email. His smile faltered. Westwood's an hour away in traffic. We'd manage, I said quickly. Would we? He stared ahead. Ella's school? My VA meetings? Your bungalow. Your bungalow. Not ours. The silence thickened. At home, Ella woke crying nightmare. James rocked her, humming off-key. I sorted laundry, finding his faded army tee tangled in Ella's tiny socks. His home. But Westwood gleamed glass towers, high-profile clients, a salary that could secure Ella's future. Mark's call came at midnight. Heard about Westwood, he purred. Congrats. But relocation voids our custody agreement. I'll petition for primary residence. Ice flooded my veins. Ella's life is here. Your life, he corrected. Play is in Westwood now. Choose. The Westwood salon gleamed, floor-to-ceiling windows, chrome accents, silent with potential. The district manager, Naomi, swept through. Your vision, Hazel. Train who you want. Build an empire. She paused. We'd need you relocated by month's end. I drove to James's apartment, a sparse studio above a garage. He was sanding a crib for his sister's baby. Sawdust coated his boots. Ella needs stability, I blurted. Mark will take her if I move. He wiped sweat from his brow. So don't go. It's triple my salary. Ella's college. Ella needs you present, he cut in, voice rough. Not commuting 2 hours daily while Mark manipulates her. He set down the sander. And accident into a station, growth, soldiers, and axe, waved a priest into a station. But it's your dream. Dream? I pictured Ella's face when I missed her school play for a last-minute client. The empty seat. Dreams shift, I whispered. Naomi's disappointment crackled through the phone. This opportunity won't wait, Hazel. I know, I said, watching James teach Ella to hammer a nail safely. Tap, tap, tap. But something shouldn't be rushed. That evening, I found James rebuilding my porch swing. The one Mark had forgotten to fix for years. Ella helped, handing him screws. Why? I asked. He tested the swing's chains. Solid. Because roots matter more than rooftops. Mark's lawyer called as the first stars emerged. Mr. Reed withdraws the relocation threat. For now, a temporary ceasefire. But on the swing, with Ella snuggled between us and James's arm warm around my shoulders, the peace felt deep. Earned. Westwood will find another star, James murmured into my hair. Ella yawned. Mama's my star. I kissed her forehead, breathing in sawdust and hope. The flagship could wait. This us was the only empire worth building. The campground smelled of pine resin and wood smoke, a sharp, clean scent that scrubbed away the salon's chemical tang. Ella danced around our tent, her nature journal clutched like a treasure map. Look, Mama, fire ants. She pointed at a trail of red specks marching toward our cooler. James knelt beside her, his voice a low rumble. Observant scientist, but let's redirect their mission, yeah? He sprinkled cinnamon, a trick from his army survival training creating a spicy barrier. Ella scribbled furiously. Ants hate cinnamon. Mark's call pierced the peace. Change of plans, he announced, no greeting. Sarah's birthday brunch is tomorrow. I need Ella by 10 a.m. Tomorrow. The night we'd promised Ella stargazing with the new telescope James hauled up the mountain. She's with me until Sunday per the schedule, I said, watching James show Ella how to whittle marshmallow sticks. Controlled, calm. Schedule's flexible, Mark countered. Or do I need to remind you about parental cooperation clauses? The threat hung thinly veiled legal venom. Ella tugged my sleeve. Mama, James found Jupiter. Her eyes shone with pre-dusk excitement. James adjusted the telescope, his back tense, he'd heard. Breathe, shape, release. Mark, I said, stepping away from the campfire's crackle, you've swapped weekends twice this month. Ella stays. Silence. Then a hissed, we'll see, before the line died. I returned to find Ella gone. She was right here, James said, scanning the tree line. Chasing a blue morpho butterfly. Panic, cold and familiar, seized my throat. Not again. Not here. We split up. James crashing through ferns toward the lake, me circling campsites. Ella, my shout echoed off pines. Distant thunder growled. I found her 10 minutes later, crouched beneath a redwood, her journal open to a smudged sketch of the butterfly. It landed here, she whispered, pointing at a flower. Relief buckled my knees. Oh, sweet pea, I gathered her close, smelling damp earth and little girl sweat. James arrived, breathless, leaves in his hair. He didn't speak, just pressed his forehead to Ella's, his hand gripping my shoulder. Solid, present. That night, storm clouds swallowed the stars. We huddled in the tent, Ella asleep between us, her fingers curled around James's dogwood tattoo. Rain drummed the nylon roof. Mark's escalating, James murmured, using Ella as a pawn. I traced Ella's eyebrow, soft, fair, so like Mark's. He wants control, but I won't play war. James shifted, pulling a folded paper from his pocket, a flyer for a family law workshop. Co-parenting without conflict, it read. My VA counselor runs it. Thought we could go, together. We. The word settled warm in my chest. Outside, lightning flashed, illuminating the determination in his eyes. Not revenge, strategy. At dawn, the storm cleared. Mist rose from the lake like ghosts retreating. Ella splashed in shallows, hunting tadpoles. My phone buzzed, Mark. Be there in 90 minutes for Ella. James glanced at the screen, jaw tight. Want me to handle it? No. I typed swiftly, my thumbs steady, per custody order, drop off is 5 p.m. Sunday at my residence. Any deviation requires mutual agreement. I do not agree. See you at 5. I hit send, then blocked him for the day. Powering off the phone felt like shedding chains. James grinned, tossing Ella a pebble. Watch it skip, bug. The stone hopped 3 times before sinking. Ella squealed, your turn, Mama. I threw mine a clumsy plunk. James's arm circled my waist, his laugh vibrating against my temple. Needs practice. His kiss, quick and sun-warmed, landed on my hair. Packing up, Ella tucked a pine cone into her journal. 4-hour garden, she declared. James lifted her onto his shoulders. Home? He asked. Home, I echoed, but home now held shadows. Mark waited on my porch, arms crossed. Sarah lurked in their idling BMW. Unacceptable, Mark spat as James unbuckled Ella. You don't deny me my child. Ella buried her face in James's neck. His child. The old wound throbbed. I stepped forward, shielding them. I denied a demand outside our order. That's all, Sarah rolled down her window. She's manipulating you, Mark. James set Ella down gently. Go inside, Bug. Water your sunflower. She fled into the house. He faced Mark, a soldier's stillness in his stance. Hazel's protecting Ella's routine. Something you'd understand if you attended her ballet recitals. Mark flushed. You documenting my failures? Just observing. James's voice stayed low. Like noticing you're 47 minutes early for a 5 p.m. pickup. Stressful drive? Mark's fists clenched. For a heartbeat, violence hummed in the air. Then he deflated, shoulders slumping. Just take care of her, he muttered, turning away. Sarah's screech mark went ignored. Inside, Ella sang to her sunflower seedling. James washed camping dishes at my sink. I unfolded the workshop flyer, smoothing its creases. Co-parenting without conflict. Not surrender. Armistice. That night, as James read Goodnight Moon for the 100th time, I studied them, Ella's head on his chest, his finger tracing each page's moon. Roots weren't anchors. They were foundations for wings. The community center smelled of stale coffee and desperate hope. Fluorescent lights hummed over folding chairs where fractured families perched, divorced dads in ill-fitting suits, exhausted moms clutching custody binders. James handed me a foam cup. Navy-grade sludge, he whispered. Worse than Kandahar. His attempt at humor fell flat when Mark strode in, Sarah trailing like a sleek predator. He ignored us, claiming front-row seats. Co-parenting without conflict glowed on the projector. Irony burned my tongue with the coffee. The facilitator, Dr. Vance, no relation to our mediator, began, conflict is a we, not a me. She drew a Venn diagram, his needs, her needs, child's needs. Where do they overlap? Mark scoffed audibly. Sarah snapped a photo of the slide, texting rapidly. Documenting, I realized. For ammunition, James's knee pressed against mine, steadying. Dr. Vance approached us during breakout exercises. Your daughter's artwork? She nodded at Ella's sunflower drawing taped to my notebook. She's 6, I said. Loves space and tadpoles. And shared interests. Dr. Vance probed gently. Mark cut in, smiling thinly. Ella adores my Porsche. Right, Hazy? Hazy, the old nickname, now a Barb. James tensed. Dr. Vance's pen hovered. Mr. Reed, this exercise is about Ella's joys, not possessions. Later, role-playing. James volunteered as Mark. You undermine me, he parroted Mark's cadence perfectly, using Ella against me. My reply flowed from Dr. Vance's script. I hear your frustration. Let's find solutions benefiting Ella. Solutions, James? As Mark sneered, mem. Like replacing me with him? He jabbed a thumb at his own chest. Laughter rippled. Even Dr. Vance hid a smile. Mark's face purpled. Rain blurred the windshield as we left. He won't implement a damn thing, James muttered. But we will, I said, tapping Dr. Vance's handout communication log template. Ooh, document every swap, every call. My phone buzzed, preschool director. Urgent meeting tomorrow. Ella's distress. Mark's shadow work had begun. The director's office felt smaller this time. Mrs. Chen reported Ella crying over Mama's scary boyfriend, she said, steepling fingers. Claims James yelled at her. Ice shot through my veins. Lies? When? Last Tuesday during pickup. I opened my communication log. Tuesday was Mark's pickup. James was in Ventura for VA training. I slid over time-stamped gas receipts and James's conference badge photo. Mrs. Chen witnessed Mark shouting at Ella over spilled juice. Remember? I placed her own texted video on the desk. The director paled. I didn't connect. Mrs. Chen is Mark's client, I added softly. He does her corporate taxes. Silence. Then, a weary sigh. The Reeds threatened to pull funding for our playground if we favored you. Breathe, shape, release. Ella loves this school. Her friends, the playground. I met her eyes. I want her to stay. But not if lies are the tuition. Sarah ambushed me at Luxbrow's. Came for a brow lift, she announced, smirking. Since you specialize in fixing flaws. Clients glanced up. Leela stepped forward, but I waved her off. Control the controllable. Consultation room 3, Sarah. She reclined, examining her nails. Mark's filing for full custody. That VA workshop proved James is volatile. I uncapped a pigment vial. Look up. She flinched. What? My chair, my rules. I tilted her chin. You've overplucked. Aggressive arch. Just fix it, she snapped. I mapped her brows with a silver pencil, too sharp, too angry. Fixable, I murmured. But scars take time. Her phone buzzed, Mark. Director caved. Playground safe. Back off. Sarah's breath hitched. I wiped the pencil marks away. We're done. You didn't touch me. Some damage, I said, holding the door open, isn't skin deep. James found me on the bungalow porch at dusk, Ella chasing fireflies. Director called, he said. Apologized. Mrs. Chen misremembered. Alla dashed over, jar clutched. Look. Lightning bug. Golden light pulsed against the glass. James cupped her hands. Gently, bug. They're fragile. Like truth, I whispered. He kissed my temple, but stronger in the light. Inside, I filled out Dr. Vance's log, 914, Sarah attempted provocation tea salon. Contained. Isti Ella's joy, fireflies in a jar. Mark's shadow stretched long. But tonight, it didn't touch us. Rain blurred Luxbrow's windows into watercolor smears. Inside, the air vibrated with the low hum of microblading pens and murmured affirmations. 12 women sat in my chairs, survivors from the Sunrise Shelter, their faces maps of resilience and faded bruises. Leela had blanched at the pro bono event. High-end clients will complain about the atmosphere. But the shelter director's plea echoed, help them reclaim their faces. Mrs. Chen arrived unannounced. She hovered near the refreshment table, clutching a designer handbag like armor, eyes darting over the client's healing brows, the visible scars some couldn't hide. Mark's favorite client. His spy. Surprised to see you, Mrs. Chen, I said, sterilizing a blade. Your arches are perfect. Her smile faltered. Mark mentioned your charity work. Thought I'd observe? Observe. Code 4 report. I gestured to Maria, a young woman with eyes like shattered glass. Maria, this is Mrs. Chen. She's curious about transformations. Maria flinched, pulling her hoodie tighter. Microblading isn't magic, I continued, mixing pigment for Maria's sparse brows. It's reconstruction, like rebuilding trust. I dipped the blade. First stroke, follow the natural trauma pattern. Maria's breath hitched. Hurts? A little? She whispered. Good, I said softly. Means you're feeling it. Not numbing. Mrs. Chen watched, silent, as I rebuilt Maria's arch hair-like strokes over scar tissue. Each stroke was a whisper. You exist. You are seen, the door chimed. James entered, soaked, holding a cardboard tray of coffees. Fuel for the rebuild crew, he announced, his gaze sweeping the room, lingering on Mrs. Chen. Tension crackled. He set a cup near Maria. Extra cream. You looked cold. Maria's eyes welled. Thank you. Mrs. Chen cleared her throat. Mr. Walker, Mark mentioned your military service. James met her stare. He mentioned the court-martial too? Or just the Dewey, Maria gasped. Other clients stilled their pens. Mrs. Chen flushed. He implied instability. James knelt beside Maria's chair, ignoring Mrs. Chen. Hurricane Maria, right? Hit Puerto Rico in 17? Maria nodded, stunned. My unit helped with relief, he said. Saw what real instability looks like. Not the kind on paper. He tapped his dogwood tattoo. Real instability leaves marks that don't fade, like yours. He didn't mean her skin. Mrs. Chen's phone buzzed. Mark's ringtone. She silenced it. James stayed, handing out gauze, cracking gentle jokes. When Lucy, a client with tremors from nerve damage, dropped her pigment, he caught it mid-air. Reflexes, he winked. Perk of being a screw-up. Lucy laughed. A rusty, beautiful sound. Mrs. Chen approached me during cleanup. Mark said you exploit these women. For pa. I wiped down my station, the scent of alcohol sharp. Why are you really here, Mrs. C? Chen, her composure cracked. He's auditing me, threatening penalties unless I gather information. Her knuckles whitened on her bag. My husband doesn't know about the embezzlement. Mark found out. Breathe. Shape. Release. The pieces clicked Mark's leverage over her testimony at preschool. So you lied about James yelling at Ella. Tears glistened. He said he'd ruin us. Outside, rain slowed to mist. James escorted the last client to a shelter van, his hand a steadying presence under her elbow. I can't fight him, Mrs. Chen whispered. You don't have to. I handed her a Luxbrowse card, backdated. Full correction, 10.15. Tell Mark, you confirmed, I'm distracted by Charity, that my skills are slipping. Her eyes widened. A lie? A camouflage, I corrected. While we build your defense. Quietly, she clutched the card like a talisman. Why help me? I glanced at James, laughing with Lucy by the van. Because rebuilding takes a village. Even one built on shaky ground. Mark called as James drove me home. Mrs. Chen confirmed it, he crowed. Charity cases tanking your reputation. Westwood would shudder. I watched raindrops slide down the passenger window. Guess I'm stuck in Glendale. Exactly. Satisfaction oozed through the speaker. Know your place, Hazy. James squeezed my hand. Hazy. The nickname didn't sting this time. It felt like a relic. At the bungalow, Ella presented James with a Lego spaceship for helping Mama's friends. He lifted her onto his shoulders. Team effort, bug. Later, reviewing Mrs. Chen's encrypted financial files, James whistled. Mark's not just an ass. He's a predator. I traced the dogwood vines on his arm. We protect our own now. He kissed my forehead, his lips lingering. Yeah, we do. Mrs. Chen's email arrived at dawn, playground funding secured. Director resigned. New policy, verified reports only. Attached, Ella's sunflower drawing from preschool, captioned, My mama fixes broken things. The first snow-dusted Glendale-like powdered sugar, muffling the city's sharp edges. Luxbrow's grand reopening, now Hazelreed Studio, gleamed with fresh paint and ambition. Champagne flutes clinked as clients admired the minimalist space. My name, bold on the window, felt less like a victory and more like a breath finally released. James navigated the crowd with Ella perched on his hip, pointing at framed before-after photos. Mama fixed that lady. She announced to a silver-haired woman examining corrective work. The woman, Mrs. Delaney, an oncology nurse, smiled. Your mama fixes more than brows, sweetheart. Mark arrived uninvited. He lingered near the refreshments, Sarah radiating frost beside him. Sentimental, he remarked, fingering a display of vintage tweezers. Keeping your humble beginnings. Ella squirmed from James's arms, darting to Mark with a snow-damp drawing. Daddy, look, our new garden. The crayon sketch showed 4 stick figures under a dogwood tree. Mark's smile stiffened. Who's this? He tapped James's figure. Lee, James, Ella beamed. He builds things. Sarah's manicured hand snatched the paper. Inappropriate fantasy, Mark. James materialized beside them, plucking the drawing gently from Sarah's grip. Artistic license, he said, handing it back to Ella. Bug, show Mrs. Delaney your masterpiece? She gardens too. Mrs. Delaney settled into my chair later, snowflakes melting in her cropped hair. Brow rehab, she requested. Chemo stole them. Her eyes held the hollowed look I recognized, grief mixed with defiance. Breathe, shape, release. I mapped her bone structure. Will rebuild. Gentle strokes. As the needle hummed, she whispered, My husband left during treatment. Said my battle depressed him. My hand didn't waver. His loss. Yours stayed. She nodded toward James, now fixing a wobbling shelf under Ella's supervision. He's not staying out of obligation, I said, blending pigment. He stays because rebuilding together is his choice. Mark's voice cut through the salon's murmur. Concerned about Ella's attachment to unstable figures, he stood near Layla, loud enough for clients to hear. Parental alienation is subtle. Mrs. Delaney's hand clenched. Ignore him, she murmured under my lamp. Vultures circled the wounded. Ella's birthday party erupted in chaos when her new dollhouse door jammed. Tears pooled. Broken. James knelt. Toolbox already open. Let's investigate, Chief. Ella sniffled. passing him a plastic screwdriver. Mark watched from the cupcake table, jaw tight. Sarah's phone clicked, capturing James elbow-deep in miniature furniture. Documenting instability? I asked, refilling her punch. Documenting inappropriate bonds, she corrected. He's playing house with Mark's child. Funny, I said, watching James whisper conspiratorially to Ella as the door swung free. Ella seems to think it's her house. Mark approached James as the party wound down. We need to discuss boundaries. My attorney? James handed him a tiny plastic wrench. Hold this. Stunned, Mark fumbled it. All-E. James guided Ella's hand to tighten a minuscule bolt. Teamwork, bug, even helpers need tools. Mark stared at the wrench, then at Ella's rapt face. Something cracked in his expression. Not surrender, but confusion. Sarah yanked his arm. We're leaving. Snow fell heavier as guests departed. Mrs. Delaney hugged me at the door, tracing her new brows in the mirror. You gave me back a piece of myself. Her gaze shifted to James, sweeping glitter off the floor with Ella. Guard that man, he sees your cracks as art. Alone, we collapsed on the salon floor amid discarded wrapping paper. Ella slept against James's chest, icing smeared on his shirt. She called me Daddy James's today, he whispered, voice raw. By accident. I leaned into him, the snow-blurred streetlights painting us in blue and gold. Was it? Outside, Mark's BMW idled at the curb. He didn't approach, just watched, a shadow dimming as snow buried his windshield. James pressed his lips to Ella's hair. Feels like coming home. I laced my fingers with his, our palms gritty with glitter and sawdust. Maybe home isn't a place, I said, watching Mark drive away. It's who survives the storm with you. The salon's neon sign flickered, Hazel Reed Studio casting a pink glow on the fresh snow. Inside, surrounded by the wreckage of celebration, we were perfectly unbroken. The blizzard hit at midnight, a howling monster rattling the bungalow's windows. Emergency alerts screamed from phones, roads impassable. Shelter in place. Ella slept through it, curled in my bed with James's army sweatshirt clutched to her cheek. I watched the weather radar, ice blue tendrils swallowing Glendale whole. Mark's call came like clockwork. Ella's scheduled for my weekend. I'll pick her up at 8 a.m. Wind shrieked down the chimney. Check the alerts, Mark. It's a state of emergency. Parenting time isn't weather dependent, he snapped. Unless you're fabricating obstacles again. James emerged from the kitchen, thermos steaming. Tell him I'll drive her if he clears the county plows by dawn. His attempt at calm frayed when Ella's monitor crackled. A nightmare whimper. Daddy James, storms loud. He was halfway to her room before I exhaled. Power died at 3 a.m. Darkness swallowed us whole. Ella's cries pierced the black. Mama, the monsters. James lit emergency lanterns, casting jagged shadows. Monster Patrol, reporting. He saluted, voice booming through fear. Requesting backup, Chief. Ella hiccuped into laughter as he hoisted her onto his shoulders, patrolling each closet. My phone glowed, Sarah's Instagram, cozy snow day. Photo, Mark's Porsche buried under icicles. Caption, real dads brave storms for their kids. James read it over my shoulder, jaw tight. He'll try something stupid. He did. At dawn, Mark's BMW skidded into our driveway, fishtailing on black ice. Sarah filmed from the passenger seat as he stumbled toward the porch, designer boots slipping. Easel, bring her out. Now. I opened the door, Arctic wind slapping my face. Ella peeked from behind my legs. Daddy? Get in the car, princess. Mark reached for her. James blocked the threshold, shovel in hand. Roads closed, sheriff just radioed. He nodded to the scanner crackling inside. Abandoned semi on the 134. Mark brandished his phone. I've got odd, you're withholding, crack. A deafening snap echoed as the ancient oak in our yard split, its ice-laden branch crashing onto Mark's BMW hood. Glass exploded, Sarah's scream pierced the white noise. Mark froze, staring at the wreckage, steam rising through shattered windshield. My car? James pushed past him, assessing the damage. Lucky it wasn't you. He yanked his own truck keys from his pocket. Get Sarah inside. Now. The bungalow became an uneasy refuge. Sarah huddled by the fireplace, shock blanket around her shoulders. Mark paced, phone dead, no service. This is your fault, he seethed at me. If Ella was with me, she'd be in that car, James cut in, handing Sarah cocoa. His calm was glacial. Ella tugged Mark's sleeve. Daddy? Want to see my fort? She pointed to cushions and blankets stacked near the hearth. James built it. Mark's resistance crumbled. He let her lead him, ducking into the makeshift tent. I glimpsed them through a gap, Ella showing him glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. Mark's shoulders slumped. James stoked the fire. Power's out till tomorrow. We've got propane, canned soup, and… He unearthed a box from the closet. No, Sarah snorted. Childish. Ella's head popped out. I'm great at Uno. We played by lantern light. James accidentally stacked +4 cards for Ella. Sarah cheated blatantly. Mark stared at his hand, then at Ella's triumphant grin as she won. Play again, she demanded. During round 3, the scanner crackled. Read residence. Occupants safe. Vehicle destroyed. Mark flinched at his name. They'll bill me for the tow. Priorities, James muttered, laying down a winning card. Night fell. The fire dwindled. Ella slept between us on the fort floor, her breath even. Sarah dozed in the armchair. Mark stood at the window, watching ice glitter under the moon. You think I'm the villain? I joined him. I think you're scared. Lashing out is easier than changing. He traced the frost on the pane. Sarah wants kids. I told her I'm already failing one. Outside, the fallen oak branch gleamed like a skeleton. Ella doesn't need perfection, I said softly. Just presence. James appeared holding 2 mugs. Coffee, instant. Your penance for cheating, Reed. Mark took it, hesitated. The va, do they help with anger? James met his eyes. First step's admitting you want help. Silence. Then a whisper, yeah. At first light, plows rumbled past. Mark helped James shovel the walkway, movements stiff but deliberate. Sarah filmed the wrecked BMW, her commentary shrill. Our insurance will sue for hazardous property. Mark took her phone. Enough. He knelt by Ella's fort. Bye, Bug, Daddy'll call soon. Ella hugged him, her mitten patting his back. Build a fort with Sarah? It helps monsters. Sarah looked away. As their tow truck vanished, James wrapped an arm around me. Think it'll stick? I watched the sunrise fracture the ice into diamonds. Maybe not, but it's a start. Ella pressed a snowball into my hand. For the garden, Mama. It's sparkly water. The cold stung my palm. I held it tight. Beauty salvaged from the wreckage. The ice storm's wreckage glistened under a brittle California sun-shattered branches like broken bones against the thawing sidewalks. James hacked at the frozen oak limb pinning Mark's BMW, each axe swing echoing in the unnatural quiet. Inside the bungalow, Ella traced meltwater trails on the windowpane. Daddy's car looks sad, she whispered. Mark returned at noon, flanked by tow truck operators. He avoided my eyes, directing them with stiff gestures. Sarah was conspicuously absent. When the crushed hood groaned free, revealing the engine's silver guts, Mark flinched. Totaled, the driver confirmed. James wiped sweat from his brow. Need a ride? Mark stared at the wreck. I'll call an Uber. To where? James pressed. Garages closed till Monday. A muscle jumped in Mark's jaw. Motel. Ella darted onto the porch, clutching James's dogwood sketchbook. Daddy, draw my sunflower? Mark's resistance crumbled. He took the book, flipping past soldiers' sketches to a blank page. I'm rusty, he muttered. I left them on the porch. Mark hunched over paper, Ella guiding his hand, yellow here, and retreated to the salon. Post-storm clients needed rescheduling, insurance forms demanded attention. Leela met me with wide eyes. Vogue reached out. She thrust forward an email. Feature on scar camouflage pioneers. Urgent request, before-after of Mrs. Delaney. My breath caught. Vogue. Global recognition. Validation beyond Mark's petty wars. I scrolled to Mrs. Delaney's contact. Send? The salon door chimed. Mark stood there, snowmelt darkening his designer shoes. Ella's with James, getting hot chocolate. He shifted. I owe you an apology. The words hung, awkward as a mismatched brow arch. I set the phone down. For which part? The custody bullying. The lies. He stared at a framed corrective work photo, a burn victim's restored eyebrow. Sarah's gone. Filed a claim against me for emotional distress after the crash. Poetic justice. I bit back the remark. Ella misses you. When you're present. He touched the frame. How do you do it? Take broken things and make them whole. By honoring the damage, I said softly. Not erasing it. James returned, Ella sticky-mouthed and giggling. Daddy drew a dinosaur sunflower. She thrust the sketchbook at me. Mark's tentative lines showed a T-Rex sniffing a bloom. Clumsy, alive. Vogue wants Mrs. Delaney's story, I told James later, scrubbing cocoa from Ella's overalls. Like, is it exploitation? He stilled. Does she get to choose? Choice. The core I'd fought for. I called Mrs. Delaney. It's your face, your narrative. Her pause stretched. Will it help others? Like me? Yes, then yes. Mark lingered as dusk painted the sky tangerine. James mentioned VA counseling. He scuffed ice with his shoe. I booked a session. James handed him a shovel. Driveway's still a skating rink. They worked side by side, James's efficient military strokes, Mark's hesitant pushes. Ella supervised, measuring slush depth with a ruler. Teamwork, she declared. I photographed Mrs. Delaney's brows under studio lights, the feathery strokes over radiation scars, her eyes fierce with reclaimed ownership. Sent the shots to Vogue with one line, beauty isn't the absence of damage. It's the light that leaks through the cracks. Mark left at nightfall, borrowing James's spare truck. Return it Monday, James said easily. Ella hugged Mark's legs. Draw me more dinosaurs? I'll try, he promised, voice thick. In the bungalow, James found me reviewing Mrs. Delaney's consent forms. He's trying, he said, nodding toward the departing taillights. Trying isn't doing, I countered. James lifted Ella onto the counter. Remember her first steps? Wobbly, fell a dozen times. He handed her a spoon to stir, imaginary cake batter. But she kept trying. Now look. Ella balanced effortlessly, singing. Point taken, my phone buzzed, Vogue's editor. Powerful. Running in April. Can you consult on a scar project? James read over my shoulder. Westwood's calling again. No. I powered off the phone. This is my flagship. Ella dropped the spoon, clattering. Mama, James, dance party? She jabbed at my Bluetooth speaker. A pop song blared. James scooped her up, spinning until she shrieked with joy. I joined, laughing as he pulled me into their orbit. Mark's sketchbook lay open on the table. The dinosaur sunflower beside Ella's blocky signature. Not art. Not yet. But a start. Outside, the last ice slid from the roof, shattering on the steps. Winter's grip was broken. Lux's brows buzzed with pre-Vogue shoot chaos stylists adjusting lights. Mrs. Delaney's laugh ringing bright as wind chimes. I blended gold undertones into her brow pigment when the email hit. Subject, urgent, client liability notice, Hazel Reed studio attachment, a Yelp review with photos of necrotic tissue around microbladed brows. Hazel Reed gave me a staph infection. D, the username. Glow Goddess 22. Chloe. Leela paled. Vogue's team arrives in 90 minutes. Mrs. Delaney squeezed my wrist. Breathe, warrior, breathe. Shape, release. My hands didn't shake. Leela, pull Chloe's file. Sterilization logs. Now. James materialized at the back door, Ella in tow for her photo shoot assistant role. He took one look at my face. What's burning? Us, I whispered, showing the review. Mark's last stand? James scanned it, eyes narrowing. Wounds wrong. Staph blisters are clustered, not linear. He zoomed in. These are razor cuts. Self-inflicted. Chloe arrived trembling, flanked by a shark-faced lawyer. We'll settle for $250K. Quietly. I placed her before-after photos beside Mrs. Delaney's untouched brows. Show me your scars, Chloe. She flinched, covered by makeup. Scars from my work don't vanish, I countered, sliding magnified shots of her original sparse arches. These are your brows today. The pigment was flawless, no redness, no trauma. Your infection photos. I tapped the Yelp image. Stolen from a tattoo horror blog. 2018, Chloe's lawyer snapped. Baseless accusation. James stepped forward, phone open to the blog. Reverse image search. Took 20 seconds. He loomed over the lawyer. Know what isn't baseless? Defamation during a Vogue feature. Damages, 6 figures. Minimum. Chloe burst into tears. Sarah paid me, said Mark needed leverage for custody. The salon door chimed. Mark stood there, holding Ella's forgotten lunchbox. Heard there's a fire. His gaze locked on Chloe. Sarah's idea? Chloe nodded, mute. Mark sighed, running a hand over his stubble. Thinner now, grayer. Tell Vogue's team to come in. He faced me. I'll handle this. James blocked his path. Your handling got us here. Not this time. Mark pulled out his phone, dialing. Sarah, it's over. Withdraw Chloe's claim or I release the embezzlement files to your board. Pause. His voice turned glacial. Try me, he hung up, turning to Chloe's lawyer. Your client has 10 minutes to retract everything. Publicly. Or I sue you for conspiracy. The lawyer fled. Chloe whispered, I'll delete it. Just don't ruin me. Mark knelt. Eye level with her. Ruins what Sarah does. Hazel, he nodded to me. She rebuilds. Vogue's photographer captured Mrs. Delaney mid-laugh, her scarred skin glowing under the lights, brows framing eyes that held galaxies of resilience. I blended highlighter on her temples as Mark watched from the shadows. Why help? I murmured. He glanced at Ella, giggling as James pretended to light meter her nose. Because she deserves better than who I was. He handed me a folded paper VA intake forms. James's counselor. I start Monday. James joined us. Tension humming. Truce? Mark extended his hand. For Ella. James shook it. For Ella. That night, the bungalow smelled of delivery pizza and lavender oil. Ella's calm-down ritual after the chaos. James traced the dogwood vines on his arm. Mark's playing the hero now. Maybe, I said, watching Ella teach her teddy bear yoga. Or finally facing his monsters. He pulled me close, lips brushing my temple. Still trust me? I thought of him spotting Chloe's fake wounds, shielding Ella from the lawyer's glare. With my cracks, I whispered. Always. Ella cartwheeled between us. Mama, James, watch, she tumbled, laughing. James caught her, tossing her high. Fly, bug, her squeals echoed through the open windows, blending with the scent of night-blooming jasmine. Outside, the city lights glittered, 1,000 fractured pieces slowly knitting back together. The scent of orange blossoms and steamed silk hung thick in magnolia bridal as James fidgeted with his collar. Why do groomsmen ties feel like nooses? He grumbled, catching my eye in the gilt mirror. I adjusted his lapel, my fingers brushing the dogwood embroidery on his pocket square, a subtle nod to our journey. His sister Lila beamed behind us in her gown, ivory satin pooling like moonlight. 1 month since Mark's VA intake. 3 weeks since the Vogue feature went viral. A lifetime since I'd stood before mirrors without flinching. Stop squirming, Lila laughed, swatting James's shoulder. You survived Kandahar, but not at Tux. Kandahar had better airflow, he retorted, but squeezed her hand. Warmth, family, the word no longer cracked when I thought it. Mark arrived unannounced, hovering at the boutique's entrance. Ella spotted him first, darting from the flower girl dress rack. Daddy, look, I'm a sparkle princess. She twirled, tulle skirt flaring. Mark's smile was tentative, raw. Beautiful, bug, his gaze flicked to James. Need help with that tie? Silence stretched. Lila held her breath. James nodded stiffly. Knife Windsor or bust. I watched from the fitting podium as Mark looped silk under James's collar, his movements precise, almost reverent. Sarah's suing for the Porsche's value, he murmured, eyes fixed on the knot. Claims emotional trauma from the tree. James didn't pull away. Tell your lawyer to subpoena the arborist's report. That oak was rotten before the storm. Mark's hands stilled. You knew? Noticed the fungus when I built Hazel's porch swing. A-beat. Meant to mention it? Or is the problem of Y or C? The first olive branch. Brittle, but real. Later, over bitter bridal shop coffee, Mark slid an envelope across the table. VA counselor suggested this. Inside, Plane tickets to Hawaii. Mother-daughter getaway. 1 adult plus 1 child. THD, Ella mentioned wanting to see volcanoes, he said, avoiding my eyes. Thought you two deserved lightness. Suspicion coiled in my gut. What's the catch? No catch. He traced a watermark on his cup. Counseling's humbling. Realized I weaponized wanderlust. His constant work trips. My dreams deferred. Go, he urged. Before the salon's fame chains you hear. James appeared, balancing Ella on his hip. Volcanoes beat glitter duty, he grinned, nodding at Leela's bustling entourage. But his eyes held mine. Is this safe? I thought of Ella's passport, gathering dust. Of Mark's trembling hands in the VA waiting room last week. Redemption isn't a destination. It's the walk. Okay, I whispered. The salon hummed with post-Vogue prestige. New clients whispered as I passed. But my focus was Maya, my star apprentice, prepping for her first solo scar camouflage. Her client, a firefighter with burns across his scalp, gripped the chair. Nervous? I asked him. Terrified, he admitted. Maya's hand shook as she sterilized tools. Me too. I covered her fingers with mine. Remember, pressure's a whisper. As she etched the first hair strokes, I stepped back. Let go. Her concentration was fierce, beautiful. The firefighter's reflection softened, hope dawning where shame lived. My phone buzzed, Mark. Sarah dropped the lawsuit. Took a settlement from her trust fund. Attached, a photo of Ella's volcano drawing taped to his VA counselor's office wall. Caption: My bug's world is bigger than my rage. James found me on the salon roof at dusk, overlooking Glendale's glittering gridlock. You're quiet. Thinking about lava, I confessed. How it destroys, then creates new land. He wrapped his arms around me, chin resting on my head. Mark's trying. Trying isn't trust. Trust isn't static. Why is any other appreciation and other appreciates of restaurants the tack? He turned me gently. You trusted Maya today. Let her fly. Below, Maya exited the salon with her client. He touched his new brow line, stunned. She glowed pride, radiating brighter than any Vogue spotlight. James pressed a small box into my hand. For Hawaii. Inside, a waterproof compass, its face etched with dogwood blooms. So you never lose your way back, he murmured. Back? To us. Ella's voice floated up. Mama. James. Lila needs us. We descended to chaos. Lila's veil torn, a bridesmaid sobbing over spilt wine. James knelt, safety pinning lace. I blotted Merlot silk with seltzer. Ella supervised, distributing gummy bears like rations. Amid the mess, Lila laughed, catching my eye. Family, huh? Family. The words settled, warm and weighty, like Ella asleep on my shoulder later. Sticky with candy, dreaming of volcanoes. The big island's black sand hissed underfoot. Waves gnawing at the shore like restless teeth. Ella danced ahead, her neon bucket brimming with obsidian shards and pumice. Dragon treasure, while Kalauia's plume painted the horizon in sulphurous gold. 6 days since Mark's tickets brought us here. 6 days of salt-crusted hair and Ella's endless whys. Why is Lava angry? Why did Daddy cry when we left? I crouched beside her tidal pool, where a sea urchin pulsed violet in its volcanic cradle. Lava isn't angry, I said, echoing James's words from our last call. It's just changing shape. Like people. My phone buzzed, James. A photo flooded the screen, Lila beneath a chuppah woven with dogwood branches, sunlight catching her tears. No tuxedo noose, he'd written. Just my sister, happy. Behind them, the empty groomsman's spot yawned where he should have stood. My choice, he'd insisted when I protested the trip's timing. Your shape-shifting matters too. Ella shoved a jagged rock at me. For James, it's brave like him. Mark's video call cut through the ocean's roar. Bug, show me the treasures. His face filled the screen, thinner, softer at the edges. Va pamphlets lay scattered behind him. Ella rattled her bucket. This one's for you, Daddy. It's gray like your sad car. He laughed, real, unguarded. Perfect. I'll put it next to my anger management star chart. His gaze shifted to me. James sent the wedding pics. You should have been there, I said, watching Ella chase a crab. In the dogwood chuppa. Silence. Then, quiet as the tides retreat, I'm applying for transfer. San Diego branch. He rushed on before I could react. Not running, just giving Ella space to grow roots without my shadows. James called at dusk. Walk with me? His screen showed our bungalow porch swing creaking, Ella's chalk sunflowers smudged by rain. Leela's hitched. Mom cried. I day is C-I and I, Mom cried. Dad hugged me, apocalypse stuff. I aimed my camera at the ocean, where molten gold met indigo. Wish she were here. I am, his voice roughened. Look down. On my phone screen, his sleeve rolled up. The dogwood tattoo now bloomed with a single Hawaiian lehua flower petals, like crimson flame woven through the roots. Fresh ink, drew it myself, he said. Artist said it's reckless. Healing takes weeks, so does trusting, I whispered. Yeah? A pause. What if our roots grew together, Hazel? Properly. No ring, no kneel. No kneel. Just James Reed's quiet courage laid bare. Ella slept between us on the lanai, her breath synced with the surf. James traced the lehua on his screen. Mark's transfer. It's good, scary good, I admitted. Like you not being at Leela's wedding. Priorities shift, he zoomed in on his tattoo. The lehua's stamen bleeding into dogwood veins. This isn't an ending. It's a graft. I opened Ella's treasure bucket. Nestled beside obsidian shards lay a ring, twisted volcanic glass and dogwood petals encased in resin. James's breath hitched. When? Kona glassblower, I said. Ella chose the petals. At sunrise, we waded into the tide pool, Ella squealing as fish nipped her toes, James's face pixelated but present on my phone propped on lava rock. Ready? I asked. He nodded. I slid the ring onto my finger. It fit warm, imperfect, glowing like captured sunrise. Yes, I said, not to him, but to the horizon where fire met sea. Let's grow. Ella splashed us both. Now James is family James. On screen, his smile outshone the Pacific dawn.